Imagine that you are sitting at home when the phone rings. You pick it up and hear the distraught voice of one of your friends. And she tells you that the teenage son of a family in your church has just been killed in a car accident. The family is in a state of shock, and you would do anything for them, but what can you do? It's a question you will ask yourself at one time or another. What can you do when you see yet another tornado has struck a city, demolishing homes and destroying lives? What can you do when you learn that a friend has been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness? What can you do when the challenge is greater than you are, when the hurt is palpable, when you feel helpless and impotent? Where can you turn? A missionary doctor named Helen Roosevelt was faced with this type of question. Helen had spent 20 years in the Congo at a clinic and orphanage, and during her 4th year, a mother died in labor, leaving behind a premature baby and a 2-year-old girl. The facility had no incubator or electricity. Dr. Roosevelt's first task was to keep the newborn warm. So she sent a midwife to fetch a hot water bottle. The nurse returned with bad news. The bottle had burst when she filled it up. Even worse, that was the last one the clinic had. Dr. Roosevelt instructed the midwife to sleep near the newborn to keep it warm. They would seek a solution the next day, but a solution was not easily found. The clinic was in the heart of the jungle, and help was many miles away. The life of the newborn was in jeopardy. The following day at noon, the doctor mentioned the concern to the children, and she told them of the frail baby and the sad sister. They all prayed. But one 10-year-old girl named Ruth took it on herself to take the problem directly to Jesus. "Please, God," she said, "send us a water bottle. It'll be no good tomorrow, God, as the baby will be dead. So please send it this afternoon. And while you're at it, would you please send a doll for the little girl's sister so she'll know that you really love her?" Well, the doctor was stunned. The prayer could only be answered by the arrival of a parcel from home. In her 4 years at the clinic, she had never received a single package. Even if one did arrive, who would send a hot water bottle to the equator? Well, as it turns out, someone did. Later that afternoon, a 22-pound package was delivered to Helen's door. She felt the tears in her eyes as she called the children together. Could God have really answered little Ruth's prayer so precisely? They pulled off the string and unwrapped the paper. In the box, they found bandages, jerseys, raisins, sultanas, and a brand new hot water bottle. Next to the hot water bottle, there was a doll for the little girl's sister. The box had been shipped 5 months earlier. In Isaiah 65:24, God tells His children, "Before they call, I will answer, and while they are still speaking, I will hear." The Lord had heard Ruth's prayer even before the little girl had offered it. How many of us would have had this same type of faith? How many among us would pray with such boldness? How many of us truly take Jesus' words to heart? "Ask for anything in my name, and I will do it," so that the Son can bring glory to the Father. We all need God's help at times to fix the broken parts of our lives. So do the people around us. Just as God keeps His word and meets our needs, He will meet the needs of those in our lives. Again, all we need to do is ask, "Father, you are good. I need help. So do they." And with these words, we intercede on another person's behalf and invite God to work a miracle directly in that person's life. That, my friends, is an awesome privilege and an awesome responsibility. One of Jesus' most intriguing teachings about prayer is found in Luke 11, verses 8 through 11. In this story, Jesus says, "Suppose you have a friend and you go to him at midnight and say, 'Friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread.'" That's you, ringing the doorbell at midnight. The neighborhood is quiet, the streets are still, the sky is dark, and so is your friend's 2-story house. But still you ring his doorbell. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. It's a big house, so it has a big chime. His chihuahua wakes up. The dog has this snappy, "Who do you think you are?" bark. Ruff, ruff, ruff. And you envision what is happening upstairs. Your friend's wife is giving him a kick beneath the blankets. "Hank, get up. Someone is at the door." Poor guy. One minute he's sound asleep, the next he's being kicked out of bed. Hank is not going to be happy. The porch lights come on, the door opens. Boy, does Hank look like a mess. Boxer shorts, t-shirt, bed hair, face lined with pillow creases and whiskers. "What in the world are you doing here?" he asks. "A friend of mine has just arrived for a visit," you say. "I have nothing for him to eat. Can you help me out?" Hank grumbles and complains, but you insist. "Come on, Hank, please." Finally, your friend invites you in and he takes you to his pantry and you fill a basket with food and you take it home. Your surprise guest doesn't have to go to bed hungry, all because you spoke up on behalf of someone else. This is intercessory prayer in its purest form, a confluence of paucity and audacity. "Father, you are good. They need help. I can't help them, but you can." This prayer gets God's attention. After all, if Hank, a cranky, disgruntled friend, will help out, how much more will God do the same? He never sleeps. He's never irritated. When you knock on his door, he responds quickly and fairly. Jesus never refused an intercessory request, ever. Peter brought his sick mother-in-law. The centurion brought his sick servant. Jairus had a sick daughter. So did the woman from Canaan. He heard so many requests that the disciples attempted to turn people away, but Jesus would not let them. He never grew impatient at the requests. But he did grow impatient at the lack of one. It happened when a father brought his epileptic son to the disciples of Jesus. They attempted to help the boy, but they couldn't do it. So when Jesus learned of their failure, he erupted in frustration. "Oh, faithless and perverse generation," he said, "how long shall I put up with you? How long shall I bear with you?" Well, such an outburst. What was the oversight of the disciples? Well, simple. They never took the boy to Jesus. He had to command them to bring the boy to him. And Jesus had a strong word for this: unbelief. Belief is pounding on God's door at midnight. Unbelief is attempting to help others without calling on Jesus. One of the most amazing stories of intercession is found in the book of Exodus. The Israelites had just sinned against God by doing the whole golden calf stunt, and God was not happy. In fact, he was ready to wipe out the entire nation. Dry grass on Mount Vesuvius stood a better chance of survival. The people's only hope was their octogenarian leader. If Moses had any clout, this was the time to use it. And he did. He prayed. On his face one minute, he was in God's face the next, pointing his finger, lifting his hands, shedding tears, shredding his cloak, wrestling like Jacob at Jabbok for the lives of his people. And how did God react? The Bible says the Lord changed his mind and did not destroy the people. This is the promise of prayer. We can change God's mind. His ultimate will is inflexible. but the implementation of that will is not. He does not change in his character and purpose, but he does alter his strategy because of the appeals of his children. We cannot change his intention, but we can influence his actions. After all, as Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:20, we are ambassadors for Christ. We represent the King and speak with the authority of the throne. Like a congressman, we represent a district. We speak on behalf of our families, our neighborhoods, our softball teams. Our sphere of influence is our region, and when God burdens us with a concern, we respond with prayer. Father, they need help. If we as ambassadors for God send our King a request, will he not listen? By all means. Intercessory prayer isn't rocket science. It simply acknowledges our inability and God's ability. We come with empty hands but high hopes. We come with the knowledge that he is able to do exceedingly more than what we could ever ask or think. That he supplies our needs according to his riches and pours the abundance into our laps. I have personally experienced the power of intercessory prayer in the life of our church. During the early 1990s, when I was new to the Oak Hills congregation, I had an opportunity to visit Skyline Church in San Diego, California. The minister, John Maxwell, invited me to speak. I agreed in exchange for his best advice on how to build a strong and healthy church. Well, John was quick to give it. Prayer. He specifically suggested that I recruit 120 partners who would commit to praying each day for the church, my family, and me. When I returned back to San Antonio, I announced the plan to the congregation. Within a month, exactly 120 people had volunteered to form the team. 6 months later, I was happy to send a report back to John about everything that had happened as a result. In just those 6 months, we had twice broken our record for Sunday attendance. We had finished the year with our highest ever average Sunday attendance, and we were now well over the budget. We had nearly doubled our staff and elders and witnessed several significant healings. Antagonism in our congregation was at an all-time low, and church unity was at an all-time high. I was stunned. Our church felt God's wind in our sails, and all we had done was increase our resolve to pray for others. It's happening again. During the 3 months I led our church through this study on prayer, our giving increased well over budget. Every single campus grew. We again enjoyed our highest attendance ever. Even more, we saw more people come to Christ than in any comparable period in the history of the congregation. The explanation? Prayer. As we redoubled our commitment to pray, God redoubled his promise to bless us. Nothing pleases Jesus as much as being audaciously trusted. When we bring people to Jesus, he opens the pantry. In the book of Revelation, the Apostle John records his vision of heaven. At one point, he sees the prayers of the saints ascending like incense into the presence of God. An angel takes the censer of prayers, fills it with fire from the altar, and throws it to the earth. Instantly, there are noises, thunderstorms, lightning, and an earthquake. Behold the power of prayer. You ask God for help, and bam, your prayers are filled with fire and thrown down to the earth. You lift your concerns to heaven, and turbulence happens, noises, thunderstorms, lightning, and an earthquake. So, go ahead. Knock on the door at midnight. Stand up on behalf of those you love. And yes, stand up on behalf of those you do not. Jesus instructs you to pray for those who hurt you. The quickest way to douse the fire of anger is with the bucket of prayer. Rather than rant, rave, or seek revenge, Just pray. Jesus did that as he hung on the cross. Father, forgive them, he prayed, for those who had crucified him. They do not know what they are doing. Even Jesus left his enemies in God's hand. Shouldn't you do the same? You are never more like Jesus than when you pray for others. So pray for those you love. Pray for those you don't. Pray for this hurting world. Present their case to the giver of bread. Father, you are good. I need help. So do they. And then bring a grocery basket, for God will give you plenty of blessings to take back to them.